I've got his book right here. Just act like the person you want to be, and then you become that person. Maybe you're faking it forever, but you're successful, and who cares? What's the difference?
First deployment, when these guys are dying.
That gut feeling, almost always right. Like, it's very rare that it's wrong.
So first deployment was caught in Michigan, Afghanistan. So it was in the Pesh River Valley, Kunar province.
How'd you react to actually having bullets flying?
Then you realize, okay, I'm getting shot at. In my mind, my mom's gone, but my brothers next to me are here, and I can help them.
Yeah.
And they basically be like, no, you have to go home.
Keep your attitude in check, be real, be authentic, and I think people will resonate with you.
I wrote my book. For context of my book, I wrote it in 2 days, bottle of whiskey and bawling my eyes out. War is different, it takes more than it gives. So you can do the combat, you forget, but when you come home, that's when the psychological part happens. You start you're mourning, you're trying to just figure out ways to handle that loss, honestly.
100%, man. When you scream out to God, and I don't know if that's who you were screaming out to, but to the universe, to whoever, to yourself, I promise those screams are being heard. You got to hit rock bottom, man, before you have a story to share to continue healing the world.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you? No problem.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm looking forward to chatting with you, buddy. I was just digging through your book. I'm excited to read the whole thing, but man, this guy's been through the ringer. I just want to hear your story and have you share it with everybody, and we'll just go back and forth. Got any questions for me?
More just how long you've been doing this? Like, what made you decide I'm just gonna launch a podcast?
Geez. Well, I started wanting to do this when I was about 5 years old. But they didn't have podcasts back there. They had radio, so I had a karaoke machine and a microphone that my parents got me, and I would always record the radio and do the intros over it. My dad did a little bit of radio when he was growing up, and so that always piqued my interest. I was kind of a techie kid, even when there wasn't really a lot of tech back then. We had IBM computers with DOS and big old boards that you could swap out of these machines. So I don't know. Yeah, I started this. So I dealt with a lot of PTSD, anxiety, depression. I was in the military. I was in the National Guard, but, I wound up in Iraq as well in 2003, 2004. I did convoy security as a gunner. And I probably did 300 different convoys. And I came back with, in 2005 with a lot of PTSD, anxiety, depression from childhood stuff, along with the military and bad relationships, stuff like that. And so I just, kind of went downhill. And so I did the VA thing and on and off medication for almost 20 years and, 19 years, whatever. And nothing helped. And I used alcohol to help me get through social events and stuff like that, and that worked for me. And looking at me on from the outside, you may be like, he's fine. He doesn't have PTSD. He doesn't have anxiety. He's full of shit, which I didn't really talk about it, except to the VA. But, I went into law enforcement for about 10 years as a reserve deputy for sheriff's department. And, it wasn't the craziest shit that happened. I had some pretty interesting, wild experiences and some tragedies that I dealt with as an officer, going to some scenes that were awful and, some children that lost, and it really kind of set me over the edge. And so I got back on medication and relationship to my beautiful wife was falling apart. And I don't know, out of nowhere, my brother-in-law, he's, this business dude, and happened to invest in this ayahuasca retreat down in Costa Rica. And he was like, hey man, you want to come down and do ayahuasca with me? And I was like, I listen to podcasts and listen to Joe Rogan and stuff like that. And I've heard about veterans healing themselves with psychedelics, and so I was like, okay, yeah, why not? And so I did it, and it was life changing. And I mean, it was completely life changing, like night and day. And so I've always wanted to do something different than what I do. And I have 2 kids and a beautiful wife, but I am gone all the time. And they're growing up very fast, and I don't want to be on the road, and I don't want to be away from them. So I said, I got to do something different. God help me. Like, I got to figure something out. And, I need to make a decent living because my wife has, my wife's great. But she doesn't want to be married to somebody who can't provide for our family, not that she would leave me, but, she likes a nice, comfortable life, as everybody does, that takes from a person with PTSD and anxiety, being able to support yourself and support your family. That takes away an element of anxiety and depression, and stress. And I try to keep now my life as stress-free as possible. The stress I bring into it is the stress I want, like working out and, just doing podcasts and burying myself in that. But I enjoy that. And so I'm not doing this full time, but I started it back in October to answer your question. And I just started with my first video talking with my brother-in-law, like, come on, man, I need help. I got to record. I got to learn how to do this. And he came on, this phone, just walking around. I'm like, oh, all right, I'll chop it up and see what I can do with it. And then it was, my sister and then a friend. And then, I just kept getting out of my comfort zone. And then I went on to some different services out there that match you with podcast guests and hosts. Cause I was like, how the hell, I want to do this, but how the hell am I going to find anybody to talk to, and dude, I was just getting hit up. And my channel went from, I started with 1,000 subscribers, which I had for 10 years from just messing around with a couple little videos. And then it was dormant for literally 10 years. And so I started with 1,000. And, since then, I think I hit 17,500 today in 4.5 months. So it's on the way up, and I've done probably 55, 60 of these, and it's gotten better, progressively better each time. I'm learning how to edit and how to talk to people because, that's not something I really did a lot of. And so anyway, that's kind of the little backstory on me, and we're going to jump into you. And you got any questions about that before I do the intro?
I got a lot of questions.
All right.
It's just more, it's amazing. Like what you're doing, you just do it, figure it out as you go. That's exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm just figuring out as I go, and it's like taking off. I'm just like, okay, am I doing everything right? Like, okay, well, I'm talking to people, so I guess I'm doing something.
Yep. It doesn't matter. You're doing it. Yep. And I've been down to this ayahuasca retreat 3 different times, not because I needed any more healing. Obviously life happens and things come up, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend just going down there for fun all the time, but I wanted some more answers, and so I did this in, basically a year in December of 23. And so I went down there, did it, and then I went back in July. And really in July, I was like, okay, I need some answers. And I had a download from up above, and it was like, just do it, man. Pull the trigger. You got to do this. And so I did. And, and just keep going. Just keep pushing, and eventually it will turn. You will become what you put your mind to. If you want to be, a speaker who goes around and helps people, and you talk to veterans and talk to businesses or leaders or people that need help, like eventually you just become the person you want to be. If you keep acting the way you want, just act like the person you want to be, and then you become that person. It's kind of weird, but and I've heard successful people talk about this, and I'm like, yeah, it's easy for you to say you're successful, but when you start just doing it, I'm like, oh shit, that actually is working. So
It's like fake it till you
man.
make it, and then eventually
Totally.
you make it.
Yeah, and then you're not faking it anymore, or maybe you're faking it forever, but you're successful, and who cares? What's the difference? I think everybody's got, imposter syndrome. I hear Joe Rogan and Sean Ryan and all these big guys. They still talk about having imposter syndrome. So I think, that's probably a good thing. You don't want to be the guy that's like, I'm a big deal. I've made it, keep your attitude in check, be real, be authentic. And I think people will resonate with you. So let's find out about you, man.
Let's do it.
All right. Welcome back to the Tim Teaches podcast. I'm your host, Tim McCoy. Today I have the absolute pleasure of being joined by Juan Espinosa. Juan is a U.S. Army combat veteran who served as an infantryman in the 101st Airborne. He's also the author of Unbroken, Turning Pain into Purpose. His story is an incredible journey that takes us through turbulent childhood, the mental challenges of military service, and the struggles of starting over. Before we get started, if you find value in this episode, please share it with somebody who will benefit from this discussion. And please leave a like, a comment, so we can continue to share these important stories. Juan, welcome to Tim Teaches.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely, man. Took us a few times to get through that introduction. You have a great story, but I screwed up a couple things. So and that's my bad. But one thing I wanted to point out, I've got his book right here, and I've been skimming through it this morning, and there's some incredible stories in there. So before you do anything, listen to this podcast and then buy his book. But Juan, give me a little backstory. Who are you? What are you all about? And how'd you get here?
So a little backstory is I was in the active duty 101st Airborne Division when I was 18, did 4 years, and then I did my first deployment back in 2010, 2011, Afghanistan. From that, I transitioned later on to National Guard. I did a Cuba deployment, and then I left that and went to did private contracting, where I did 3 more deployments to Afghanistan as a private contractor. More like the military side of things. Been through marriage, divorce, lost a lot of people, brothers, my mother. And so just going through a tough life that, we never share with anybody.
Mm-hmm. How did you, we're going to start from scratch here. The contracting is uber interesting to me. The Gitmo, you were over there. I want to hear about that. And but first, tell me about you, 5-year-old you. Where were you? What was life like for you?
5-year-old me, I believe I was in San Jose. Just being a kid that would, me and cousins would just run around, do stupid stuff, and throw rocks at cars and get in trouble for it, or jump off, my grandma's roof just to play around. So very carefree kid.
So high school, you made it. Did you go to high school? Were you a GED guy? How did life work out?
I went to high school. I did just enough so I didn't have to repeat classes, but it was D's.
Yeah.
So I really, I'm not an honor roll student or anything like that. Just enough so I didn't have to, repeat any classes. Graduated, but since I didn't focus on school, options are limited. Either, work a 9-to-5 job, which I think was very, boring, mundane, or go to the military and go fight. So I was like, well, I'm just going to do that.
Right on. Real quick, can you move your mic closer to you?
All right.
Just so I can hear you a little bit better.
All right. A little better. I can turn this up a little bit. How's that? A little better?
That's good. Yeah. Yep.
Fantastic.
Yeah. You just want to be heard. And it makes audio leveling. So, all right. So you joined, decided to join the military. What was that process like? You took the ASVAB. How'd that go for you? Were you, top tier guy, or were you squeaking in like me, because I barely made it in.
Yeah, so I took the ASVAB. I can't remember. It wasn't horrible score, but it was just like, damn, like, okay. Yeah, like middle. So
Yeah.
I can't say I was an honor roll student, or, I can join, if I had a good ASVAB, I'd probably join the Air Force.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I didn't. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I barely got in with that.
Right on. What was it like? Did you always kind of have an idea that you wanted to go into the military, or was it kind of just a spur of the moment for you?
It was more just I'm first generation military. So all my cousins, no one else has been military besides me. So I didn't know, it was just like, okay, well, I could work a 9 to 5, or I could go to the military. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. So like, a day after I graduated, when I turned 18, I was just like, I signed, boom, the next day.
Wow.
So
What was that?
I guess
What was that recruiter like? Was he like rah rah, or this is the best move for you, or did you just kind of like, yeah, join or don't join? Because I know there's recruiters on both sides.
he was a very like chill recruiter, and he worked with me a lot, and he was all about it. He's like, what do you want to do? I was like, I want to be in the fight.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, well, we have infantrymen. I was like, okay, well, that sounds cool. Let's in the fight.
Yeah.
I'm down.
Because you joined while war's still going on. So, I mean, that takes a different type of person. A lot of people like me, I joined in 1997, and or 98 actually, but I was still 17. I turned 18, in basic training. And, but yeah, it takes a different breed of dude to be like, okay, I'm going to do this. And I know I'm going to go to war, because everybody at that time was going to war. And, that's what you were looking for? Or was it just like, okay, I'm going to do the military. If I wind up deployed, then we'll just see what happens.
I think I knew when I signed I was going to war. That was a given. So it wasn't like a shock, but I didn't realize how fast I was going to go. That's the big thing is, I knew I was going to go. I just didn't know when. So when I got to my, went basic training September 2009. I finished in December 2009. I got to my unit in January, and I deployed in May.
Whoa, that's fast.
So I was literally at my unit for 4 months, and I was, boots on ground in 4 months.
What'd your family think of that?
Dad, he's a man of not a lot of words. So he was just like, he was proud, but I knew he was worried. Same with my mom. They didn't say much. They just like, but you can look in their eyes. They're like, okay, like, yeah, real things happening.
How many kids are in your family?
So I have 3 sisters. Well, yeah, I have 3 sisters. One of them I don't talk to. And another 2 that are in my book, Amanda and Kat. They're basically the same thing. They didn't really say much, but you can tell, just looking at someone's, eyes, you could tell they're worried too.
Anybody else?
Nope. Does that? 3 sisters?
3 sisters. You're the only boy?
Yep.
Oh man. So they're sending their only son off to war, man. That's gotta be tough for a parent, especially a dad, man. Yeah, I have a son, and I now I'm like, yeah, I would be proud of him, but that would be very hard to watch your kid walk out the door knowing he's going to fight in some pretty bad places, So yeah, what was that?
Especially when if you're the only son, then you basically have to waive, because I know the military, like the sons, if you're the only son, the military won't take you because the whole bloodline thing.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So when I got in, basically I had to waive that. I think a recruiter, I was talking to my dad too, like, he doesn't have to go. He's the only boy. He don't have to go. But if he goes, like we want you to know, like,
yeah,
we'll prove it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. That's, yeah, I never really thought about that. I had an older brother, and when I joined, and so that never even came up. Wasn't even a question. So it's interesting to think of, because the buck stops with you when it comes to the family growing. So, so you how basic training and all that stuff wind up for you? Was it what you expected, or was it pretty intense? You know, I don't know. I went in, 98 through basic training, and it was tough, but it wasn't like they didn't beat us physically, like some of the old stories you hear.
For us, it was a mental game. I was never used to any of that. So just getting, like the whole shell shock thing, you get off the, the buses and they're yelling at you and, putting you to the ground, but no one's getting like beat physically, but they're just gonna, they're gonna
mentally beat you.
Yeah, exactly. They're gonna toss that bunk. They're gonna throw your locker. They're degrade you as much as they can.
Yeah.
So that took some getting used to that.
Yeah.
But when you actually do, then it's easy. It's like just a game. The physical part wasn't awful, but it sucked.
Yeah. If you're not, I don't know what your physicality was like growing up. Mine was, dude, I worked out maybe like 4 times in my life. And I think I ran about a quarter of a mile before I went to basic training, like thinking this will help me. And dude, I was trash for a long time. I got really good at running. Like, I think I went in at like 240. And after AIT, I came out at 198. Which is crazy because right now I weigh almost 260. So I was, everybody's like, man, are you sick? What happened to you? Guys, that was it.
For me, like my fitness level, I was always fast. And I'm a small dude. So like getting in, I like barely made weight getting into the military. So when I get there, I'm like, okay, anything like running, I'm good. You put weight on me? No, I'm not.
Yeah. For sure. So you made it through that, no problem. Spin up with your unit. Did they welcome you with open arms, or with a bunch of old, war veterans who'd been on a bunch of deployments and everybody's pissed off? How was the reception for you?
It was welcoming. Like I said, a lot of these guys were around. I was the baby of the platoon, so I was the youngest guy there. Everybody else like 25, 26, they went to Iraq, but it wasn't like, so they're like 25, 26, but majority of them never went to war. They had like 2 guys that went to Iraq. So none of them went to war either. First you have this like mentality where like, okay, we got this new guy, we're going to mess with him. And basic train don't mean anything. But then again, they basically taught us, their way. So getting to the unit was very welcoming in that aspect. So it wasn't like some old timers that been in Iraq, been to war 5 times. It wasn't like that.
All those guys had gone out or, had other exits out of this life. Unfortunately, like it's, a lot of people dealt with a lot of mental health issues, especially in those units. Like those guys been through the shit, So you spin up to, where's your first deployment? Where are you heading to?
So first deployment was Cop, Michigan, Afghanistan. So it was in the Pesh River Valley, Kunar province. So that's where we landed. Before that, obviously you have to go, Kuwait, and you do some staging there and stage Jalalabad. Then you go to where we had to fly in. So it was the Kunar province. It was it's the province that's on the border of Pakistan. Hearing we're going there, like some people heard, okay, well, this is like a really bad spot. And our cop, we had 3 platoons from, so you had a platoon from Alpha, platoon from Bravo, platoon from Charlie, and a platoon from Delta companies. And they're the best platoons. And that's where we went. That's why we went to this cop.
They just took one platoon from each of these companies and put them all together instead of the whole unit?
Yeah. So basically what happened was, I guess they had to train it before I got there. And they basically, each platoon that was called was the best in that company. Mm-hmm. So like, okay, they basically mix us all up to go to the most dangerous cop, because I guess they needed the best there. So
I mean that makes sense, but it's like you're getting put in with a bunch of dudes you don't know and haven't really trained with, or had you guys been training together with these other platoons?
No,
they just said, let's have that voice. And
exactly.
Was there kind of a beef between the different platoons, or was it all cohesive and everybody just buddy?
Oh, it was great. We all knew each other. We all before, after work, sometimes we'll go, be a kid and party, I guess you would say.
Yeah, yeah, for
um,
sure.
so a lot of these guys I went to basic training with too. So
Okay.
in different platoons. So it was very like, I see him like, hey, what's up, man?
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Okay. Right on. Yeah. So that kind of happened to me. I was in the National Guard, and we had our unit, and then they pulled different just individuals from all over California into this unit. And so there was a lot of like, 4 or 5 people would show up from this company, and there was always this kind of weird tension, at least for about the first, during training and stuff. Once we got to Iraq, it kind of smoothed out, but that's interesting to me. I didn't realize they did that, one platoon here and there, but sending the best guys makes sense. So, you get over there, you're just chilling until how long? Like 10 hours, 5 hours, or until you start hearing shit, or was it weeks?
So that's the interesting part. So when we flew over there, we flew at night, and we landed, and the pilots are just, the crew chiefs of the Chinooks are just like, run straight till you hit a wall. It's like pitch black. Like, okay. So, they got us off fast, and I ran, hit a wall. The next morning, that's when we had a baptism by fire. That it literally within probably 8 hours contact.
Was there a previous unit there manning that fob, and then you guys swapped places?
Yeah. So it was we came in, they left. So it wasn't really like they had a handful of people just to, show our
ropes.
Yeah, basically, but everybody else was gone. We're just like passing, we're like leaving.
Whoa. So the Taliban, or, whoever you're fighting over there, they probably knew these guys are green. Let's get them while they're soft, because that's a good time to attack if you know that these guys haven't even got their bearings yet. So.
Yeah, I think that, but I guess the previous unit as well, it was like a cop, you're getting attacked every day.
Wow.
So I guess they knew.
Yeah. Didn't matter. You were getting attacked no matter how long you've been there. Mm-hmm. So what was that first engagement like, and how'd you react to actually having bullets flying?
I was curious. I'll be honest with you. I was like, you hear these noises. I'm like, what is that? Looking up, and it's like, you're hearing the whizzes. I'm like, what's going on? And then you realize, okay, I'm getting shot at. So that's when you take your cover and, take your cover, return fire, stuff like that. That's when the training kicked in. But the first is very curious. I was like, okay, I don't know what that is. And then see like the ground snapping, dirt's coming up. You're like, oh, damn.
Yeah, that's sketch, man. But I would imagine towards the end of your deployment, and we'll get through your story, but towards the end, that kind of just becomes normal. You're like, yeah, we're being shot at. So let's man our positions and stuff. So let's jump into your story in Afghanistan. You want to share that with everybody? I assume that's why you're here.
So in Afghanistan, that's where it was until actually 2 months ago in December when I actually wrote my book, where actually everything I've been through, like mentally wise, where I actually released that and I wrote my book. For context of my book, I wrote it in 2 days, bottle of whiskey and bawling my eyes out.
Wow.
So I was never an author or a writer. It's just something hit me, and I can get to that later on, that moment. But in Afghanistan, it's really, as veterans and as males, I had this like alpha mentality, like, I'm not going to show any weakness. And I think a lot of that first deployment, was a big factor. You lose your brothers. So we bury these things. Like from so that base has 2 documentaries, Taking Fires in one documentary, and that's from our Delta platoon that was there. We have Pesh River Valley Boys, which is our Bravo platoon that was there. So that gives you more like where we're at. And the platoon sergeant basically said, this is an older guy that he'd been to Iraq twice. And he's like, being deployed over there, I got more again, more engagements than both my Iraq deployments combined within
Wow.
the first month.
Whoa. Just a
So
different animal, man.
yeah, it's like something you never experienced, you don't know about, we're just learning, but how do you handle that later
Yeah.
on?
Yeah. I mean, all the guys, everybody kept their spirits up for the most part while they're there. You lose guys. I don't know if you want to talk about any of that stuff. Don't have to. If it's in the book, great. Read the book and get those stories. But, uh, I would imagine you guys were dealing with, you lose people over there, and that fucking sucks. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is when you lose people, how do you handle that?
Yeah.
Right. The military, they were like, okay, we'll talk to a chaplain and, but you
Yeah.
talk to a chaplain, now you're labeled as crazy. And then guess
Yeah.
what? Now they're going to put you on suicide watch. You think you'd kill yourself. Like, no,
Yeah.
okay. You just suck it up and deal with it. But, when war is different, it takes more than it gives. So like, yeah, you can do the combat, you forget. But when you come home, that's when the psychological part happens. You start you're mourning, you're trying to just figure out ways to handle that loss. I think that a lot of us turn to alcohol, drugs. I've had brothers kill themselves when they got back because it was just too much. So trying to figure out a way to handle that, that's the tricky part.
How long was your deployment there, and what was it like when you came back?
So my deployment was there. It was a year. It was 12 months. So then shortly after that, that's when they did the whole 9-month deployment thing. But yeah, it was a year. And coming back, I didn't really come back to like a good, awakening, or because I had to come back and bury my mom. So it was probably 2 months before I was supposed to be finished my tour, actually about a month. And that's when they told me, hey, your mom passed. We're gonna send you home today. So that's what I came home to.
You want to talk about your mom, or?
Yeah. So my mom loved her. She had her scars that, visible, some not, but she raised me. She's actually my stepmom. So she raised me, since I was 3. My real mom wasn't there. I think I had the one memory, it's in my book, but I met her twice. But my stepmom, literally, she raised me. So that's my mom.
That's your mom. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my mom. So, and I remember calling her a week before she passed. And so when they told me, hey, your mom passed, I was at shock. I was like, no, I literally just talked to her last week.
Yeah.
And they told me, so they flew me out, and I called my sisters. They tell me it's true. I get home, I really don't know what's going on. Like, how do I handle this? And it's crazy because I don't know, it's crazy, but it might sound mean or harsh. But when they told me, I told my platoon sergeant, no, I want to stay. Because at the end of the day, in my mind, my mom's gone, but my brothers next to me are here, and I can help them.
Yeah.
And they basically be like, no, you have to go home. I was like, okay. Can't really argue that, but.
Yeah. What happened to her?
It was just, she just passed in her sleep. There's an underlying issue. I don't want to go too much into that, but there's an underlying issue where it wasn't like a natural one.
Yeah.
So that's basically what happened. Addiction came into play, which I found out later on, but yeah, so that's what happened.
It's unfortunately common and not talked about, and, mental health, it runs the gamut. It's not just in veterans or law enforcement. It's a lot of people, and a lot of people don't get the help they need or deserve, or they don't find the right outlets, and it's rampant in the world, in the United States. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do here, is spread those messages of hey man, there's other options, there's help out there. You don't have to suffer in silence. You can find people that have other therapies, or there's all kinds of stuff out there. It's just not, the main things are yeah, get counseling and take this prescription and good luck. And, you know, there's a lot of different avenues, and, you know, I touch on that a lot, but, you know, I'm sorry for your loss, and I'm sorry your mom went through that. Like, that's devastating, man. Like, to lose your mom, you know, couldn't imagine. You know, my mom is still around, but I've lost my brother, you know, and so I know, you know, what it's like to lose somebody close to you, and it sucks. And so for that, I am truly sorry, honestly. Like, you know, how'd your dad handle everything?
Yeah, that's another story. They broke up, but probably a year
Okay.
when I was overseas. But my dad, I guess, took it pretty rough.
Yeah.
So, but it's, I think from my perspective, when I was talking to my sisters, I was like, yeah, you know, I was telling them, like, I was losing, you know, your brothers and all this violence you're seeing, and then you got to come back to bury your mom. So, you know, coming back wasn't like an awesome feeling, I guess you would say. It was just like I was just trying to figure out as I go. You know, that's where I think we don't know how to handle these things, because if you just bury it, eventually it's going to come back up.
Oh yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, especially
And those rides, you know, from a war zone, all of a sudden you're on an airplane and you're landing in wherever, New Jersey or you know, San Francisco is one of these places. And it's like you go from one extreme to the other, and it's like your mind can't even process it, especially like, you know, it's different when you fly home with all your brothers, you know, and you all get off the airplane together and you're kind of going through this process. But when you're on a commercial airline, you know, all of a sudden it's shell shock. And, you know, you got somebody next to you just bitching about, you know, whatever, or something stupid. It's so hard for your mind to wrap around. And sometimes I think these, you know, going home, the MWR 2-week vacations don't do us any favor. Like when I went home, it was like, hey, let's go to Disneyland. And I'm like, what the like, I don't want to go to, I went to Disneyland, but that was the last place I wanted to be. You know, it's like, you need to ease yourself back into this. And they, you know, I know some people just want to get home and see their kids and stuff, but it's a shock on your system, and you may not realize it at the moment, you know. So you got home and unfortunately had to bury your mom. How long were you there? And then you went back to Afghanistan, or did you stay?
So I was home for, I believe it was about a week. Actually my week or 2 weeks, I think. And from there, I just went back to my unit. They're coming back.
Okay.
So basically, yeah, they're coming back when I went back to my unit. So it was in that transition period where the deployment was almost over. I think they had, you know, maybe a couple weeks. And I was home for 2 weeks. I just went back to where I was stationed at in Fort Campbell, Tennessee. Okay. And I just met my unit.
What were you doing there? How long were you there? And like, you're just back and you start, you know, partying. What are you doing?
Oh, big time. I remember, you know, I get there and the guys are there, and then, you know, someone got alcohol in our trucks. You know, we're all, you know, it was more just partying. That's all it is. Yeah. That's all it was. It was just partying every day, drinking like in the parking lot, do some PT, go back, have another drink, come back, train some more, go at night. That's where we would usually, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, was go to Nashville, Tennessee, and just drink and be crazy, because that's where I was 19, so I couldn't drink. My buddies were older than me. They gave me a drink and I had to slam it, so I got kicked out of clubs. You know, that's all we did.
Yeah.
Even on the weekends, we'd work on each other's cars, drink, but it was a good time, barbecue with the guys. But I think us drinking that much was just trying to bury those emotions.
100%. Yeah. I mean, you're kind of trying to get that, you're burying emotions, but you're also trying to get kind of that high of like, yeah, let's go. Let's freaking tear it up, you know, because that's what you experience while you're overseas. And so where do you head from there? Do you guys deploy again, or do you get out? Like how does it work?
So from there, 2012 is when I was getting out. It was just, I decided just to get out. Like they're going to go back to Afghanistan, but it was a different spot. And I was just like, I wanted to get out. So that's where I come home. I meet my now ex-wife, and that's a year after that I have my daughter. So I'm back home in the National Guard at this point. I got my family, and
So you're in the California National Guard?
that was correct.
Yeah. What you do?
I actually went military police. Total different game, MOS, but it was.
Yeah.
I remember training with these guys, and it was like they're doing like some like the training was like the felony stop, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I was like, okay, training, and they're like, okay, Espinosa, do it. So I was like, what would you do? I told them, I was like, well, I grab them, slam to the ground, and handcuff them. And our squad leader was like, Espinosa, I love your aggressiveness, but we can't do that here. It's we're working with civilians, not terrorists.
Yeah. Where was your unit out of? What was the unit number?
It was out of Sacramento, which I think I totally forgot. I think it's 149 or it's one in Sacramento.
I think it was. I was in the 2632nd out of San Bruno, California, but we were, California National Guard, so I'm very familiar with them, and good times.
Yeah, like I said, it was bad. I met a lot of good guys there, and the training we did was pretty good, and that's where I was there for, I believe it was 3 years, and then we did our Cuba deployment.
How's that?
That was great. It's fantastic. Oh, that was awesome. It was a lot of these older guys are just like, well, this is not really a deployment. I was like, this is an enjoyment. I'm loving this.
Yeah.
You tell me I can drink on deployment? Are you kidding me?
Whoa, you can drink there?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I've actually never talked to anybody who's worked over there in Cuba or Gitmo. So were you guys like guarding the facility, the prison, or what are you doing over there?
So we guarded the prison, so basically that facility. So we guarded more of the perimeter security type stuff.
Okay.
The towers, making sure everything was good to go. If the guards that work in the prison, that was the different unit. So we helped them if they need, like, hey, you need some food,
Did you ever interact with any of the prisoners in there?
No, I didn't.
No.
I didn't. But we were trained to, if we had to, basically, they called us and they'd help. We were trained to go help them.
Yeah.
If we needed to.
I'm curious, like, how many guys they have. They probably had a lot more back then, I would imagine, but some of those guys have been there for 20 years, it's like, I don't know, they just leave them there, and I don't know if that's good or bad, but jeez, that's crazy. So you had a great time doing that, but obviously, how's your mental health while you're over there? Did it improve? I'm curious about that. Like, did it get a little better? Because when you're back around the boys and hanging out and not really thinking about life at home, still there, but how'd you do there?
Oh, it was great. I think it was the camaraderie around the boys, and a lot of the guys I still talk to now.
Yeah.
You're just around the guys and just having a good time, and help each other out. If you guys, just that camaraderie is there. My first deployment, I didn't really think too much of it. Honestly, I just bury it.
Yeah. So when you get back from that, what's kind of life like for you? And you got married and divorced. How did that all go down? And you want to touch on that story and kind of run us through that portion of your life?
Yeah. So actually on that deployment, the Cuba deployment, that's where I found out my biological mom, she passed.
Oh, jeez.
It was actually my wife at the time. She called me. She was like, hey, sit down. I was like, what? She's like, oh, your biological mom, she passed. You want to come home? It's like, no. Like, Why? I don't know her. So why'd I come home? And they're like,
Yeah.
are you sure? I was like, yeah. My unit basically was like, do you want to go home? I was like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
That really didn't phase me at the time. Actually never phased me really in general. Um, so my daughter she's 11 now. So I think she was young at the time. Honestly, I can't do the math, the age
Yeah.
wise, I can't remember, but, yeah, so I basically come home, married, raise a kid. Now you're just trying to like find ways to provide, right? When you're overseas, that you make good money, and you try to just it's good money, it's the job. But then now
Yeah.
you come home, now you're okay. Well, now I got to find a job that correlates with skills, and
Yeah.
I did. During that time, I came back and I did like security. I was a truck driver, and then that's where my buddy got a hold of me, and he was from my first deployment. He was like, "Hey, I'm doing fire contracting. You want to do it?" I was like, "What is it?" He's like, "Hey, you or a hired gun essentially." He's like, you get paid this amount, and but you're gonna be deployed." I was like, "Hell yeah, all about it."
Yeah.
Hell yeah, let's do it. So that's where I went overseas for 3 years. And I came about a year and a half. I came back, for about a little less than a month, and then I left. So basically, in February of 2020, it's where I came home, and it was something was off, right? We're doing a dangerous job over there. I didn't really focus on money. That wasn't really my thing. I let my wife, ex-wife handle all that. And so February 2020, I came home, but something just felt off. Like that connection, like I go a lot in my book, but I'll try to short story at this one. But it was just something felt off. I came home, and then like probably like shortly after, my ex-wife is pregnant. I'm supposed to be the father, and I'm not. But anyways, I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
She basically was just claimed it was mine and did the whole gender reveal, did the whole baby
Oh
shower.
my God.
So I was like, come home, but have another one of your family. Like, what father wouldn't be happy?
Yeah.
So, but that connection was gone between me and her. I just feel it. It was tension. It was a point where she's, leaving and being gone at night, and I don't know where she's at. She's with a friend, maybe, but I'm starting to like think I'm crazy for seeing these things,
Yeah.
or she's basically, convincing me that I'm crazy. You're just, so I was okay. And
You
eventually,
need to get help.
Exactly.
Yeah. I've heard that a few times. Like,
Yeah.
you need to get help. And maybe I do, but it's like, you probably should get some help as well. Like,
That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, okay, is it me? Like, I know I've been like, they're like an environment, and I came back in Afghanistan. Do I need to adjust? Like, is this like an adjustment period I'm trying to figure out? So I'm like starting to think I am crazy. I was like, shit, maybe I am crazy. And then I find a document, basically shows that, she was like 3 weeks, actually 3 weeks pregnant before I even came home.
wow.
Yeah. So that's where, it went downhill from there big time.
Yeah.
But it's crazy actually when that kid was born. So I'm home. I went to the National Guard again, in this time. So I was training, Camp Roberts. I'm familiar with that.
Oh yeah. I've been
Yeah.
at Camp
So,
Bob.
yeah. So I was training over there, and, I went to an infantry unit at the time, and basically I found out, she called me, hey, I'm going to labor, I'm gonna give birth. I'm like, okay, like I'm on my way, which I told the, chain of command. They're like, oh, hell yeah, dude. They're like,
Yeah.
we'll get you home. And she was like, no, it's okay. You don't have to come.
What?
Right. So that's where I was like, okay, what? So went to the hospital. I was there when she gave birth. I was like, okay, like here, but she like didn't want me to come, which is weird. And then after that, that's when I found that document, and that's where I knew, okay. Now I felt something, but I was like, okay, now that was like concrete, like, okay, this is not mine.
Yeah. For those of you listening, that gut feeling, almost always right. Like, it's very rare that it's wrong. Like, every once in a while it's wrong, but follow your gut, man. Follow your intuition because it's telling you something that you need to know.
Exactly. Like that's, then I had the help of my sisters. They're, if you want to know detectives, ask your
Oh, yeah.
sisters. They'll find out. They'll find something for you.
Internet sleuth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's where, I find out, she was basically seeing someone else when I was gone. So on top of that, you make good money, you come back to you got no money.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, it's like, why did I leave? So that was, we were married for close to 9 years at that time. So that was a rough one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's why I filed for divorce, filed for a DNA test, which she tried to refuse in the beginning, but I pushed it with the court. I was like, no, this is what we're doing. Yeah. And I basically got it court ordered, which I already knew the answer. Like I already knew. That was the marriage part, but now like
how old was the baby when you started figuring this all out?
She wasn't even born yet.
Oh, so you already knew going into like, there's a good possibility this isn't my kid.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually when the document, that's where she was probably you think like maybe a month old.
Okay.
So like this whole process, she was pregnant. I was there providing, helping her, and I was there.
Yeah, but there's always that moment, the baby's born and dad, hold the baby. And, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait, but you kind of maybe had a little inkling that something's off here. Yeah.
Yeah. That's where, I think it was probably like a couple months. So she's probably like 1 or 2 months, holding baby, doing like that stuff. Right. I'm like, cool. And that's where you find out, okay, well, you find the document and things start playing a picture and you're like, okay, now I gotta basically back off a little bit. I still do what I have to, but I can't. Yeah. You start to have to think, how do you like back off?
Yeah. That's rough because you go from, well, maybe I have a new baby to, I better not get too emotionally attached to this situation because it's going to destroy me if I do, even more. So you guys parted ways, and that's good. How do things progress for you?
So we parted ways. That's where I get into being a single dad now. Like I was gone a lot, and why she did what she did, that, that's her choice. But I was gone a lot, so learning all this stuff to like do like single dad stuff, I'm just like, what's going on? What am I doing, right? Mm-hmm. And then now doing the whole co-parenting, that was a issue at first. Now we're good. Me and her we co-parenting great.
I apologize. I might have missed that. So you guys had another child that was your guys' child together?
No. So me and her have one together.
Okay. Yeah. I missed that part. And so, that's my bad. So you have one together and then one that was not together.
Yeah. So, so we had our first daughter, or our only daughter. And then that's when this whole baby came to play. Mm-hmm. So me and her only have one kid together.
Okay.
So we still do co-parenting. Still, I see her every week. Now it's really good. We do things for our daughter, and that's good. And the guy, that she had that other kid with, like I see him too. Like, he's still involved with them, which is great. He's a good dude, and he didn't know.
Yeah. I mean, shit happens, Yeah. It does. It's unfortunate, that it has to work out that way, but good on you for being a man and just being like, okay, this is what it is. I still have another human to take care of, and I don't want to ruin this person's life, because I know that happens. Some parents, they get separated and it's just battle for the rest of their life. And it's like, dude, what are you doing here? You're not just affecting each other, you're affecting other people, kids that are going to be traumatized for the rest of their life, And so that's good on you. Good for you for doing that. That's admirable.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. We definitely know that it was very turbulent in the beginning.
Sure.
Eventually, you both have to understand, like, you're there for the kid, for
Yep.
your kid, and do it for them, not for yourself, or, because whatever your ex-wife or your ex-husband did to you, you're there to make sure your kid has a good life. And
Yeah. And anger, there's people who get angry and that's fine. But to harbor that inside of you for the rest of your life, you're just harming yourself. You really are. It's like, yeah, just cut that person out of your life emotionally and move on, because you're hurting yourself. So good for you. But I imagine you were dealing with some other mental health challenges throughout all of this process, and you have turned your pain into purpose, which is what you're doing now. How did you come? How are you doing that, or how did you do that?
so, after I was married, then I was with Lola, which is my shooting star, I guess you would say. She's in my book, and me and her, great connection. It didn't work out, this didn't work out for various reasons.
Mhm.
I think it maybe wasn't our time now, or, I don't think it was timing. I was a little immature,
Mhm.
so I understand that, but that's where, to me, I loved her more than anybody.
Yeah.
That was the one for me. But when that happened, that's where I was just like, I started just thinking about everything in my life.
Mhm.
And how my book came about, it's in December. I was at a point where I just, like, so much pain.
Mhm.
Like, I was, as a guy, I would go outside, I want to work out to release this pain, right?
Yeah.
Something to make it not hurt.
Yeah.
And it was raining. I had this, like, metal awning outside, and, hitting that, that
Ping,
metal.
ping, ping, ping. Yep.
Exactly. And I was working out, and it was dark. I was just felt something, tell me, just like walk in the rain. That's where basically I walked in the rain, and it just, like, at this point I felt like life was just kicking me on the ground, it was just taking everything from me.
Mhm.
And I just fell to my knees, and I just, screamed, just tell my purpose. That's where I felt like a fire, like, come, inside me that I never felt. And I get up, and I scream, at life, after everything I've been through, everything, I've lost, losing, all the women I've ever loved. Do you think you can beat me? That's where I came inside, dried off, got my bottle of whiskey, cried my eyes out for 2 days, and I addressed everything at once. And so that's what helped me. And I think that's important for people to do, is to write down your pain. Because the minute you write it down, you don't have to share it with anybody. It's just the minute you write it down, it no longer has this power over you. And I'm just trying to help people realize that, you have to face it head on.
Yeah.
And I think writing my book probably more helped than 100 therapy sessions, honestly.
100%, man. When you scream out to God, and I don't know if that's who you were screaming out to, but to the universe, to whoever, to yourself, I promise those prayers, those screams are being heard, and you got to hit rock bottom, man, before you have a story to share to continue healing the world. And I mean, that's where you got, but you're on a trajectory up, and you have a very powerful story to share with people. And there's so many people who are in the same position that you were in, and your book is going to help them, and sharing those stories, and you're helping yourself, you're helping other veterans, and just, dads and people, you're helping the world. And that's what my jam is. That's what I'm doing on this thing. I'm trying to help people, man, because I've hurt people, and I've been hurt, and I've had love and loss and all of the above. And, but people don't talk about those stories, and they keep it inside, and that's not good. You gotta let it out, and let it out through your book. That's powerful stuff, man.
I think
I'm proud of you, man.
Thanks so much. It's inspiring to hear people's feedback, but I'll give you another context. 2 weeks ago, I'm Hispanic, right? We don't talk about feelings and we don't cry, right? That's how we are, right?
Yeah.
So my aunt came over. She's basically reading my book, or she's like, "How did you write your book?" And I told her, "I wrote it through pain. That's how I wrote my book." And I looked at her and I was like, "What's your pain?" And she immediately started, eyes started getting watery. She starts telling me her pain. And she's she's been going to church longer than I've ever known her, very religious, but she was leaving and she told me, say, "You're an angel we never knew we needed." Because I talk with my cousins, I'm getting there to open up and them cry.
Yeah.
Because with war, either in Afghanistan, Iraq, in a relationship with yourself, you go to war when we don't talk.
Yeah.
We have to talk. So I'm just trying to get people to talk. And now everybody else is talking about things that I had no idea about, but it's helping them. That night, that night when my aunt came over, it was a tough conversation for her, me just listening. But after that, weight was visually lifted off their shoulders and we were great laughing, everybody I talked to, once you get past that, your vulnerabilities, good time, after that.
It's okay to hurt and be sad and have pain. It's work. I once was told by a guy upstairs, face to face, Jesus, in my ayahuasca experience, that when I screamed out, "What's the point of all this?" It's the human experience, man. And that's what we're all living. We're all having the human experience, whether that's pain, loss, pleasure. We're all having this experience together. And these are just things that have happened to us. It doesn't define us. It's not who we are. It's just, part of this experience. And you're learning and you're helping people. You're doing God's work, whether you know it or not, man. And I appreciate that.
And it's crazy when you go to speak of religion. I always believed in there's a higher power, right? There's a God. I don't know what God, who's.
Yeah.
I lost faith my first deployment. When these guys are dying that I feel like have more family or more going on than me. Yeah. So I'm like, if there's a God, how are these guys dying, not me, or why, right? So I lost faith for years until 2 months ago.
Yeah,
that's what I felt.
These guys are dying, but everybody's on their own journey, man. We're all on our own journey, and we don't know when that journey is going to end. It could be tomorrow. It could be 40, 50 years from now. We don't know. But your purpose, you're alive and well because your purpose is to share this story and to help other people. And that's what you're doing. So now you got your answer. Why me? Well, this is why. Because you have a reason to live and to continue sharing your passion and your wisdom. So please continue to do that. Juan, if people want to buy your book,
it's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon. Like I said, my website is on the back of the book. I'm pretty sure you'll link it.
Absolutely.
You can just go on my website, click on it. Amazon is really cheap. I don't make any money off the book. It's just
you will
pay. Yeah. So it just pays for printing costs. I put it so cheap because I want people to actually read it and start learning the lessons and don't do the mistakes I did. So that's basically where it's at right now.
Right on. Well, I hope you get a ton of sales, and I'm going to market it to the little audience I have, which is going to be a giant audience here pretty soon. I guarantee you. So just keep plugging away. You keep spreading the good word, man. I appreciate you joining me, taking the time. All those people out there listening, if you've got value out of this, please share Juan's story, buy his book, and spread the message, man. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Juan.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, buddy.